right, let's dive into what is, without a doubt, the single most destructive conflict in all of human history. We're talking about a war that didn't just change the map, it completely reshaped our world, and its echoes are still with us today. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this thing, you've got to start with this one number: 70 million. 70 million people lost their lives. I mean, that's a figure so huge it's almost impossible to even picture. And we're talking about everyone, soldiers, civilians, from literally every corner of the globe. And yeah, this was not some small regional fight. This was a true world war. It touched 6 continents, and get this, more than 100 million people were pulled into military service. Just think about that. So, the big question has to be, how on earth did the world get to the brink of a disaster this massive?
Well, to really get it, we've got to rewind the clock. We have to go back to the end of the war that was supposed to end all wars. Because really, the seeds of World War II were planted right there, in the ashes of World War I.
So, you've got the Treaty of Versailles. Now, this was supposed to be the thing that guaranteed peace forever, right? But for Germany, it was anything but. It was a total humiliation. They were hit with these massive payments that just crushed their economy. They had land taken away, and all of this just created this deep, simmering anger. It was the perfect breeding ground for some really dangerous ideas to take root.
And that anger, it didn't just stay simmering. Throughout the 1930s, it just boiled over. You see this timeline of aggression just building and building. Japan starts expanding its empire in Asia. In Germany, a guy named Adolf Hitler comes to power, promising to make Germany proud again. And the whole time, the world is kind of just watching, not really doing much. That is until 1939, when Germany invades Poland. That was the final straw that finally pushed Britain and France to declare war.
And just like that, the fuse was lit. The whole thing just exploded. What started as an invasion of Poland swept across Europe with terrifying speed, turning from a regional conflict into an absolute global catastrophe before anyone could even catch their breath. A huge reason for Germany's early success was this brand new, absolutely revolutionary military tactic they called Blitzkrieg. It literally means lightning war, and that's exactly what it was. A shocking, devastating strategy that used surprise, speed, and just overwhelming firepower. With it, German forces basically rolled over Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and, incredibly, even France, all within just a few months in 1940.
Think about that. By the summer of 1940, it felt like all of Europe was gone. It seemed like everyone had fallen. Only one nation stood firm against Hitler, Great Britain. And during the incredible Battle of Britain, their Royal Air Force fought with everything they had, day after day, and managed to stop the German Air Force. It was a huge deal. It was Hitler's first major defeat of the war.
But the war took its biggest turn yet on December 7, 1941. That's when Japan launched a stunning surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. President Roosevelt said it best: it was a date which will live in infamy. And what it did really was awaken a sleeping giant. The United States was officially in the war. Okay. So with America in the fight, the battle lines for this massive global struggle were drawn. On one side, you had the Axis powers, mainly Germany, Italy, and Japan. And on the other, you had the Allies, a huge alliance now led by the Big Three: the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union. Now, for the first couple of years of the war, honestly, the Axis looked like they just couldn't be stopped. They were winning everywhere. But then, slowly, painfully, things started to change. The momentum of the entire war began to shift.
And this really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? By 1942, the Axis powers were at their absolute peak. So how did the Allies manage to turn the whole thing around? Well, the answer isn't simple. It came down to a few incredibly important, hard-won victories all over the world.
It really boils down to these 3 crucial battles. They happened in totally different parts of the world, but together they changed everything. In North Africa, at El Alamein, Allied forces finally beat Germany's legendary Afrika Korps. Out in the Pacific, the U.S. Navy pulled off an amazing victory at the Battle of Midway, crippling the Japanese fleet. And then there's Stalingrad, on the brutal Eastern Front, where the Soviet army stopped the German war machine dead in its tracks. This was the turning point of the entire war.
So with the momentum finally on their side, the Allies started planning their great counterpunch.
And it came on June 6, 1944. You know it as D-Day. More than 150,000 Allied soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy in France. I mean, we're talking about the largest amphibious invasion, that's an attack from sea to land, in all of human history. This was it. This was the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany in Western Europe.
From that moment on, from D-Day forward, the Axis powers were basically on the run. They were in retreat everywhere. The final year of the war was really about the total collapse of their empires, but it was also when the world started to see the true, staggering cost of it all.
And when the end came, it came fast. In 1945, with the Allies pushing from the west and the Soviets closing in from the east, Hitler died in his bunker in Berlin. Just a week later, Germany surrendered. But it wasn't over yet. The war in the Pacific was still raging. It finally ended when the United States used a terrifying, world-changing new weapon, the atomic bomb, on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, forcing Japan to surrender.
But as Allied soldiers moved across Europe, freeing a continent, they stumbled upon something, a horror that was almost beyond human imagination. As the concentration camps were liberated, the world finally saw the full, soul-crushing reality of the Holocaust, the Nazis' systematic, industrial-scale murder of 6 million Jewish people and millions of others.
So, the war was over. But the world was just shattered. Entire cities were nothing but rubble. Millions of people had no home to go back to. So, from those ashes, something new, a whole new world order, had to be built. And the world was truly, forever, changed. I mean, look at this list. The United Nations was created with the goal of making sure a war like this could never happen again. But at the same time, a brand new conflict was brewing. The two main superpowers left standing, the United States and the Soviet Union, became instant rivals. And that kicked off a whole new era, the Cold War.
And that really brings us right up to today. This war, it was a fight for freedom, a fight for the very idea of humanity. And it was won at a cost that is just impossible to calculate. It leaves all of us with the really important question, one we should probably think about all the time. It's been 80 years. Have we, as a world, really learned the lessons that were paid for with so much pain and hatred?